All right, it's still very temp, but we're gonna keep moving on the setup, and we will have more ideas as we go. And we're gonna start by combining those two VDBs together, and let's actually not using maximum, but let's use an operation like SDF union to merge those together, and we're gonna convert them back into polygon. So we're gonna use those shapes to create an attribute on our cliff mesh. So we're gonna use AL mask builder, and let's plug the second input to the objects. So right now the name of the attribute is mask. We're gonna change it into something more like a fracture. And let's head into the object tab and enable these guys. So by default there is a bit of blending going on, so let's increase the volume sampling and reduce the blend width. Can also remap the final result to get something a bit sharper. Right, I'm gonna increase the volume sample so to get something a bit more precise. And let's reduce that. Yeah, I think that will do. So this mask will help us a lot for the look dev and for the future operation that's gonna happen. I'm gonna reset a color first, because this way we can enable, disable this stuff, so that's great. Then again, if you don't have my tools, you can just make your things by yourself. I made a bunch of tutorials and course that can explain how to deal with attributes. Okay, so let's apply a little color just to remember that we have an attribute here, and let's drop another mask builder. So in this one, we're gonna generate some more slopes, and we're gonna isolate the steeper areas of the cliff, just like we did before, really. So something like 60 as a minimum angle sounds nice. And yeah, same. I'm gonna use the height again. So I don't want the ground too much in here, so let's move those. And yeah, actually now we can call the fracture attribute we created into an attribute, and let's swap those values, minimum to 100 and 0 into the max, and it's getting rid of the Boolean shape that we have. So in here we're gonna basically generate stratas, and we don't want them to apply on those fracture pieces, because those fracture pieces would be probably some fresher rock basically. And in here, in this point up, we're gonna develop something for the strata. So let's drop an unified noise and plug the position to the buzz input of the unified noise. And from here, we're gonna use a displace along normal to displace this noise. So let's plug the noise on the amount, and let's plug the position, and the displacement, let's plug it into the position. So right now this noise is applying everywhere. So we're gonna import with a bind node the strata large attribute we created with the mask builder, and plug that into the scale of the displace along normal. So a dark value inside this attribute would result in 0 displacement, while white will result in full displacement. So I'm exposing some parameters of the unified noise so that we can control everything back to the root of the point VOP. And let's see. So the frequency is way too big, and simplex noise, we're probably going to change that. But first, let's tweak the frequency. Okay, we probably don't have enough displacement in the end, so let's fit the values of this unified noise and expose destination min and destination max. So now we're gonna rename those parameters, then again make that clean, drop that, and rename min input, max output. And the max output is gonna be the maximum displacement. So as you can see, it's now displacing just on the attributes, the white areas of the attribute. So that's pretty cool. So it's inflating like a balloon. We need to tweak a bit the frequency, and that's probably way too much. And we probably should try to play with the type, like Wally, Cellular, Manhattan, and probably less roughness and octave. All right, so it's inflating in a bit weird way because we're gonna need to isolate the hard edges, and I'm gonna just isolate the curvature, and we're gonna set it to curvedness inside our mask builder. So that's what's convenient with my tool, really, is like being able to quickly bring some changes inside the mask and try things. And we can actually blur this as well. So increasing the blurring iteration and playing with the curvature remap. So we want to isolate the edges and protect them so that they are not inflating with the displacement. So let's see the final mask. We're gonna reverse those values. This way the edges are in dark and shouldn't be affected by the displacement. Something like that. Right, let's see the result. Okay, I'm gonna disable the color. All right, so it's looking weird, but at least it's not inflating like a balloon. All right, that's looking pretty interesting. Probably let's reduce the displacement amount. That would be a good start. Back in the mask builder, I'm gonna do some extra changes and enable a noise layer. So in there, we're gonna tweak the max input to contrast it a little more. And let's change the frequency. So something like that. I'm gonna keep an alligator noise, I think, and contrast it a little more. Yeah, no, let's try to keep some white values as much as we can. And well, now this strata is filtered by a noise, so that should bring some height variation. That's pretty nice. Yeah, see, we got some smooth area, some that got displaced. So we still want to keep some areas where the rock can breathe, let's say. I'm gonna blur the final strata large attribute because I think it's still too sharp. So I'm adding an attribute blur and increasing blurring iteration and step size. Yeah, that probably can help a little bit. So without and with, yeah, it's definitely more subtle. I'm gonna rename this envelope strata large and apply the same color than our mask, just so that we can figure out what is corresponding with what. And let's duplicate it, and it's gonna be a strata mid for this one. Okay, so in this new mask builder, I'm gonna enable the visualization, and we're probably gonna change a bit this noise, like offset it so that it's not exactly the same thing than strata large. Actually, I'm gonna do some curvature changes. Let's play with the slope as well. I'm gonna refine that. So maybe a minimum of 40. And in the height, let's push the height a little higher. Right. Let's see. So I'm gonna duplicate this point up, and in here we're gonna call strata mid. Let's change the frequency, something a bit higher. So strata mid is adding some interesting detail, I think. Probably gonna also enable some noise on that guy, so that we got some areas where it's still a bit smooth. Could actually set a minimum of 35% so that we are sure to have still a little bit of it, but not too much. So some areas got pretty destroyed by the fracture, so we'll adjust that later. For now, just trying to figure out the whole setup, and we'll tweak things. So okay, let's say the scatter, that was probably way too much. So we got the core of the setup done. We're gonna start playing with it in the next part.